Hey, everybody. Happy Winning Wednesday. It's Sonia
Hi,
and
Jeannie.
coming to you live for, I believe it is episode 8 of Winning Wednesday. And we are super, super pumped to be with you guys here again today. And once again, we are live all over the place. And so we would love from you if you would drop in the comments wherever you're watching from, what platform you are on, and also what time you are catching this. Because we're trying to kind of nail down what is the best time to come live and who are we talking to? Because when you're live in many, many different places, sometimes there's a little bit different audience, but nonetheless, I think you guys are going to love this topic that we're talking about today. And our goal for those of you that are catching us for the first time, our goal as entrepreneurs and also health professionals is to help you win in life, in your business, in your health, in your home, in your relationships. Let's see here, in your spiritual life. Did I miss anything? We just want you to win. And I feel like right now we're living in a world that has a lot of losing balls in the air, we'll call it. And so we want to contribute more positive energy and talk about how to navigate some of those things that might be holding you back from creating success. And so today, what we're really going to get into is a topic that is so near and dear to my heart. I could write 3 books on it. And so this is probably going to evolve into a few weeks because it is a big topic. But what we're talking about today is this idea of navigating life in 2023 in what we're calling a toxic world. So that is what we're going to unpack today. And then next week, don't forget to join us because we're going to unpack some solutions to fix the problems we talk about today. Otherwise, we'd keep you here all day. So, all right, let's get into it. Jeannie, tell me what does toxicity mean to you? Like, how is 2023 different than 1980? Let's talk about it.
Wow, where do I start?
Right? That's why I said it's a big topic.
Where do I start? Oh gosh. Uh I think a lot of it has to do with there's a lot of noise out there. Um if you look back at the 1980s, I mean, you were really um your environment influenced you, your immediate environment influenced you. Whereas now you have access to so many things that there's so many more influences, and and so you can gravitate towards the negative or the positive, and it definitely can be a good thing if you do go in specific direction, but it could also influence you in a very negative way. For me, toxicity means um, negative people, um, an environment with a lot of like chemicals and, like it's not good for my health. So to me, relationships and environment impact, if it impacts me mentally or physically, it's toxic. So
Mhm.
I mean, kind of like that's how I look at toxicity. Um, I think that relationships can be toxic too, and so there's so if you look at toxicity or toxic, like everything can be toxic depending on how you look at it. But it's really, the mental, the emotional, the physical, like all aspects. If it impacts us in a negative way, to me it's toxic.
Mm, that's spot on. And we should actually look up the definition in the good old dictionary as to what is toxicity. Because I think, you know, that definition continues to evolve. So let's talk about both of those separately because relationships and toxic influence of people in your life, we've all experienced those things. And as someone that personally struggles with a chronic illness, I have Epstein-Barr virus. Hi, my name is Sonia. I live with Epstein-Barr. And that's the key, live with it, right? So you live life regardless. But it's interesting because regardless of whatever chronic anything somebody deals with, you cannot heal from that state in your life, that thing. Like, I don't say like it is me or it defines me. It's passing through me. We'll call it that way. So I don't own it as a diagnosis. It's something I live with. But if you do not deal with relationships that are toxic in your life, you never heal from any chronic condition. So we think of healing as, the physical, but there are people that have so many trapped emotions from years of toxic relationships or negative people in their space that really in itself becomes a health burden. And so we often think about the mind and the body being separate, but literally, guys, it's one super highway from head to toe. It's all related. The health of your gut related to your brain, the brain related to your heart, like it's all intertwined. So even though back in the 80s, when somebody had a mental health issue, we would put it in that bucket. If somebody had heart disease, we'd put it in that bucket. Now we understand how years later, healthcare, preventative care, we'll call it, has evolved. And now we understand that it's all one and the same. It's all related. So, unpacking toxic relationships and toxic people in your life. And sometimes that means doing some difficult things like unfollowing people on social media, even if they're friends or family members, because they don't support your mission. I literally just made a post about that this week. Like, not everybody understands why you do what you do or why you say what you say. Sometimes those are not your people anymore, or they're your people from arm's length, like in the case of family. But being able to stand rooted in your convictions of who you are and your beliefs, so that when those toxic, I call it toxic interference, comes into your life, you can be like, and I shut it out, right? Like it's like flipping a switch and that toxicity is gone. So that's like one side of toxicity, right? You've got relationships, you've got, thoughts, emotions, even your own personal thoughts, as we call them, self-limiting beliefs. I mean, they can squash you, and they can, especially in the entrepreneurial life. I've been a full-time leader and top earner in the network marketing space for 15 years. And if I can tell you the number of times I've almost been squashed by self-limiting beliefs, that is toxicity to my business. Yeah. So there are so many things that come into play when it comes to living in a toxic world. So there's toxic emotions and toxic, let's talk about the toxic health stuff. What does that mean to you? Like, what do you see that has become more toxic today than it ever was?
Definitely the use of pesticides in our fruits and vegetables, and how accepting it is to use some of these chemicals that are probably, like banned in other countries.
And they are.
Yeah. And I think that's, very toxic. I think, the stuff we put on our grass to make it look pretty, but yet again, more pesticides, more toxic things in our environment from medications, people putting stuff in the toilet. And now we have some of that medication in the water. So believe it or not, it's everywhere. And I think, we can do the best we can, but we can't eliminate all toxicity. It's just, I think, impossible unless everybody does their share.
Right.
You
live in a bubble.
Yeah.
Right. An island by yourself, right?
Exactly.
But even then, there's, chemtrails of planes flying above, and, who knows what's coming down, even when you're on an island by yourself. So,
yes.
I guess the moral of the story is this. In 1980s, we were living very simplistic lives. I saw somebody post on Facebook the other day, and this was like, growing up in the 80s and 90s myself, like it was like, it just really resonated with me that we're the last generation X, maybe some earlier millennials, that played outside, rode bikes, did, sleepovers at the house, more than they did stuff on the phone, then they watched the Netflix, then were tied to the computer screen, right? I have, nephews that are 14, 10, almost 11, and 5, and they literally will throw fits if they don't have this going on constantly. Like,
Yes.
so it's just a different world. So that's another form of toxicity in itself is EMF radiation. And we're exposed to Doug on LinkedIn said we grew up disconnected. That is like
I love it. Yes.
I mean, that is like you just unpacked this whole conversation.
On point.
Disconnected, right? A guy was just here fixing our air conditioning or looking at our air conditioning, and he was telling me his phone died, and it's been dead for about a week. And he's like, on one level, I'm going crazy because I can't connect with everybody. But on one level, I'm realizing, wow, like this is how simple it is in life when you're disconnected, right? So the bottom line is we need technology. People demand cheap food. And I'm not speaking in general terms. I'm saying, well, yes, I am speaking in general terms. I'm not speaking about those of us that are into health and wellness. We'll pay the premium price for the organic apple, but even organic is not 100% free. So yes, you can grow your own food. You can do all of these things. And quite honestly, the more things that you do to work in your favor of being a, as we say, we're living a low tox lifestyle, you still can't eliminate it all. I can't help that there's 5G towers around my house on the cell phone. Can I get upset about it? Yeah, but then that adds stress, which makes me more toxic, right? So like, what do you do? So you have to take control of what you can. So you can control what you buy at the grocery store. You can control what goes into your mouth. You can control, the amount of time you spend on these devices. And both of us are entrepreneurs. So like if we didn't have social media, I have, 20,000 followers here on LinkedIn and, thousands and thousands over on Facebook and TikTok and all these different places. It is my full-time career being on social media, but I have to, and I've worked on this a lot since the beginning of this year. And I want your opinion in a second here, Jeannie, but just really taking a detox from these devices and treating it like this is truly a job, even though being an entrepreneur, I don't have a job and I have a lot of freedom, but I need to put boundaries around it. So how do you set some boundaries? I mean, how do you navigate the day with all this technology?
Time blocking, I used to just pick up the phone and do work during breaks, right, on my phone. But now it's very intentional. I have a certain time of the day that I actually go and do the work. Time blocking is so important because if you do it for your personal life and your professional life, you're able to apply that time to whatever it is that you said you're going to do. And you're very present in it rather than I have to check my phone to see if I have messages, but I'm supposed to spend time with the kids. Oh, then, and so I feel like I'm more organized this year with that. And it works for me because I don't want to spend more than I need to on the phone. I actually like that freedom of putting the phone down and moving away from it and not having to check.
So true. You know what I do with mine? I take it and I turn it over so it's face down so that I don't see because I turn the sound notifications off.
Yep.
But I can see the phone lighting up. So it's very tempting to go, oh, right. But I keep it face down when it's when I'm in checkout mode, because I think it's so very important, just as important as to not spray your lawn outside, right? So again, something I can control, and we don't spray our lawn, but the people on both sides of us do. That is not in my control. I mean, I guess, I could move, but chances are people next to me on both sides are going to do it as well. But I also feel like for those of us that know and understand these things, we have an obligation in a non-threatening, annoying way or non-annoying way to share what we know. So making videos like this, and again, next week, we're going to talk about some solutions to these very real problems, but it's our obligation to spread awareness that you don't have to live like that. And yes, okay, you might have a few dandelions in your yard, but it's safer for you. It's safer for the planet. It's safer for your dog's paws. It's safer for everything. We think that because we spray it on the lawn, it just stays right there, and the wind doesn't blow it around, and the dog's paws are okay as long as it's 2 days later, right? So all of these things we just rationalize as being okay because it gives us simplicity. It gives us perfection. And like you said it earlier, we have pretty looking lawns.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, when I lived in Colorado, we didn't even have grass, and it was a beautiful thing. We had, wild grass. I lived in the mountains for a while, and we had wild grass, and that was beautiful, but nobody cared if there was a few weeds in it because it was wild grass, right? So I think it's just it's a different world that we're living in today from, getting back to just sort of the negative effects around us for a second. Something simple you can do is don't watch the news. And I'm sorry if I've offended anybody that loves the news, but I tell everybody, like, anything I need to know is probably on the Yahoo front page, and it's probably not even 100% truth anyway, or somewhere I can find it, right? If there's something big you need to know, you will know. There's a war going on outside in your backyard. I promise you, you'll be made aware. But sitting and feeding your mind full of toxic energy from the news or from media that, it's fine to check out and enjoy media like a movie or, something, because it's helping you to do a little escape from reality. And sometimes escaping the toxicity for a while can be a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's entertaining, and that can decrease the stress levels in your body, right? To laugh and to have entertainment. But when you're surrounding yourself with negative energies, it becomes very toxic. And they have actually done studies where they've ran people's blood work and all of this, that, their diet is great, they exercise, they do all the things that you're supposed to do, and they, live a very clean lifestyle, but they're constantly influenced by negative beliefs, by, radiation from these phones, and their blood work is all out of whack.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, you don't think about this stuff. So this is why I just think it's such a good conversation. What else does toxicity mean to you? I feel like there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, I mean, the one big thing that you mentioned was the news. That is something that I also don't watch. I have the Washington Post app. And so if there's like a breaking news, believe me, it comes up front and it just goes across in a banner, breaking news. And I just read it really quick, and that's it. And I move on. I don't need to consume news for half hour, an hour. And that's the other difference. In the 80s, you knew that you would watch the 6 o'clock news and the 6 o'clock news would come on, and that would be it. The other thing too, that's really kind of difficult, is my husband comes from a news background. And so his whole career was in news, working at NBC and all that, writing for and producing. And so it's hard for him to disconnect from that. And so in our house, we have the TV downstairs, luckily, and I don't go downstairs, but the news is playing or at least it used to play all day long, and you would hear it, but now he's gotten better at watching like the History Channel or what have you. But I guess my point is that you can only control your environment as much as you can. But if you live in a household with people who don't do those things, it's hard. If they love watching the news, or they love to talk about politics all day, and you really don't, and you're trying to change, that can be very difficult.
Yeah, good point. So again, you have to be that positive influence, right? Without being annoying, and realizing that everyone's timing on accepting these things as being toxic is different, right? So 5 years from now, your husband may be like, you know what, enough, right? I mean, think about how long it took us to get to this place, and everybody arrives there at a different pace. And I guess the last thing I would say about toxicity before we kind of land this plane is that It also involves having a healthy home environment, and we talked about part of that, and that's the influences from the outside world, your
Yeah.
food, obviously. Those are the obvious things. But also, we don't think about the Glade plug-in we put in the wall to make it smell nice in here, the air fresheners we use, the laundry detergent, for those anyone that's still out there using Tide detergent, please stop.
Mm.
I mean, there are plenty of clean products out there that smell amazing, that do the trick, and it's not that much more expensive.
Yeah.
So Tide and those big companies, it's a little like big pharma,
Mm.
where they're out there brainwashing people through the media that that's the way to do it. But your skin is your largest organ. And if you're bathing essentially in these chemicals,
Mm-hmm.
that is not a good place to be.
Yeah.
Also, toxicity in your home could be, monitoring your home for radon gas, for VOCs, volatile organic compounds, for molds. All of these things can produce a toxic environment,
Mhm.
and your home is supposed to be your sanctuary. So, knowing what's going on in your four walls is extremely important.
Yeah.
We talked about personal care, or excuse me, like cleaning products, but also the things that you wash your hair with, the makeup you put on your face, ladies, the shower products you use, the hand soap, like all of it. And
Mhm.
fortunately now it's easier to find better replacements. And I'm just grateful that most of it gets delivered right to my front door from my clean living company. Talk about convenient, right? I don't even need to think, it just arrives. But, making sure that your environment that you wake up in, that you take however many breaths a day in, especially with all of us working from home these days, make sure that environment is your sanctuary.
Mm.
So I've
Yeah.
got a couple comments I'm reading here. Hey, April. So April says, I doubt that most people are really eating wholesome and healthy because they are not open to better options. That is so true.
Yeah.
That's what we were
I-
talking about, April, just that whole readiness, whether you're not ready to turn off the TV, you're not ready to switch out food for organic, you're not ready to let go of the Tide,
Mhm.
whatever that is, you have to be ready. And that's where all we can do is advocate. We can't change somebody. And then April also says the news has broken up things you want to see, the weather, into segments within the 30 minutes. So
Oh,
you stay engaged enough. Oh my gosh. We
yes.
need to have you on the show with us, April, one day, because
Yeah.
you got a lot of good content here.
Mhm.
You're so right. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of times when you want to see the weather, you're exactly right. You have to wait till the end.
Yeah.
And it's all like barter and mayhem for the first 20 minutes. And then we got local Johnny's soccer team did something well, right? And oh, by the way, it's going to rain tomorrow, but you have to
Mhm.
stay to the end.
Yeah.
So it really is, it's a lot of it is programming people to become a certain way so that we're
Mhm.
influenced by all of this toxicity. And
Yeah,
so
and
when
we can also, Sonia, to not to interrupt you, but we could also have a whole discussion around how the foods out in restaurants and the foods you buy in the market, the supermarket, how
Mhm.
it's all wording to get people to buy it, thinking that it's healthy and it really isn't.
All natural
Yeah,
or natural
100%
ingredients.
whole wheat.
What does that mean? When
Yeah.
something says natural flavors, okay, that maybe it's not an artificial, but like, what's the natural flavor, right? So there's so much misinformation, and I just wanted to leave with this, and we're going to pick up in this conversation again next week a little bit more. But I was watching something, I don't know where I saw it, but it was, and this is just an example of toxicity and how things are different. And every country has toxicity. I don't mean I mean, we're in North America, we're in the United States. I don't mean to point fing I don't know what's going on with my computer here. Are you there? Did I
Yep, we
disappear
hear.
for a second? Oh, weird. It's like I just disappeared for a second. My screen locked up. But we're back. So I don't mean to point fingers at the United States, but in other countries, for example, there was a woman, she was talking about a box of Fruit Loops. I mean, I remember eating Fruit Loops as a kid, and maybe they were different when I was a kid than they are today. But she was talking about Fruit Loops, same stuff in the United States, and Fruit Loops somewhere in Europe. I don't know where. And literally, here we're like, okay, red dye number 4, blue dye number whatever is the color of the Fruit Loops. Over there, it's red dye from beets. And so again, some of this stuff is acceptable here in the US. So it's on us to say it's unacceptable, because it is unacceptable.
Yeah.
Why should we be eating Frankenfood here in the US and in other countries, even though it's still sugary sweet cereal, at least you know what's in it. You know what you're getting. If I look at a box of Fruit Loops today, I don't even know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
So toxic food, big problem. We could spend an entire session on that. So,
Right. Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we kind of land this plane today that has been on your heart as we talked about?
No, and I think we covered it. The furniture in your home. If you're going to buy new furniture, really try to go for things that don't have those toxins in them.
They off gas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your mattresses, your
area rugs.
Yeah, all of it. It's the paint. We just repainted my office about 2 years ago, and I drove my other half nuts because I wanted the cleanest paint I could find. And I'm going to tell you, that's hard to find, without paying $60 a gallon for it. It's really a problem, but is it worth it? Yes, because the minute I painted my house, and I'm one of those people that's sensitive to everything, I can smell every possible thing. If somebody were to pour bleach in my house and I came into the house 4 hours later, most people wouldn't even notice it. I immediately, the minute I walk in the door, I smell it. So you become like a radar. When you live as clean of a lifestyle as you possibly can, you become a radar for things that are not clean.
Right.
And that's just, so that's a, off-gassing of those things. Perfect example. April's, again, we do have more toxicity in the US than most countries. Yeah. So April, next week, we're going to get into talking about toxic food. This is such, as you know, a big topic to unpack that we wanted to kind of set the table with what are some of the influences that are making us toxic, and how are things different in 2023 than in the 80s and 90s when I grew up and Jeannie grew up. And, it was okay to sit on the grass and like pick dandelions and not worry about who sprayed it with what, right?
Right.
We just mowed over the dandelions. Well, I didn't, but my parents did. But anyway, so I hope we've given you guys some food for thought. And if you guys thought this was helpful information, this is shareable content where you're watching from. So feel free to smash that share button, share it with others that, in your environment that we might be able to influence. And we would love to hear from you down in the comments below. April wants us to talk about toxic food. It's a big topic. We would love to hear from you. Again, our concept here is all about helping you win in life. That's why we're calling it Winning Wednesday. So what would you like to do better in your life? What would you like to be a bigger winner in? And we want to help you with that. So if you have ideas for content for us, drop them down in the comments below. And thank you guys for being with us here. And we're going to sign off until next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.